Welcome back to the Fish Tank right here on the Miami Dolphins Podcast Network. Seth Levitt, DJ Preach is in the back, and of course, the man with the best hands in the podcasting business, OJ McDuffie Juice. We're back in the Wingfield living room.
That's right, Big Seth. We're back, man, and it's always fun, obviously when, we get on my side of the football.
You've been waiting.
Always.
We've had a rough run for you. A lot of defensive guys here lately. But this guy is certainly on the offensive.
That's right.
Rob Konrad, welcome to the Tank, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to be back. Great to see the facility and great to see you guys. So
let's talk some football. How about some football, Rob? Obviously, you were a hell of a high school football player. Obviously, when you went to college at Syracuse, we played against Syracuse a couple of times. It was always fun going to the Carrier Dome. And when you got to Syracuse, you got the number 44.
Sure. Yeah.
When you think about the guys who went to Syracuse, number 44. Obviously, Jim Brown might be the greatest football player ever. You got to talk about Ernie Davis, Floyd Little,
yep.
All those guys that wore 44. That's like an honor. That's like a badge of
Terry
honor.
Richardson, who was a Gatorade Player of the Year out of Florida.
From here, Northeast High School.
Yeah.
And it was, when I had wore 44, growing up, it just always had been my number. I realized I wanted to play, fullback in high school, in college. And so really came down to, I was, as you know, I was more of an athletic fullback than I was just a pure Sam Gash blocking fullback. Right. I kind of had to learn how to block when I came here. It took me probably about a year to figure it out because in high school it was, rob right and left and punt the ball and return the ball and all that good stuff. But it was a lot of fun. But, coming out of school, I was probably, one of the top 10 ranked kids coming out of school at the time. But what was interesting is half of it was at fullback. A lot of people wanted me to play linebacker.
Okay.
Really?
You played both ways in high school?
Yeah. And but I wanted to play offensive football. Probably a lot of the same reasons you did. I found a lot of excitement catching the football, and I think I enjoyed the fact that the teamwork component of it, which has kind of followed me, I think, in life a bit. But I enjoyed the fact that you need 11 guys to do the right thing on offense to have a successessful play, where you need one guy to make a play on defense.
Right.
And
I love this conversation, by the way.
Fact, yeah.
Sure.
You're not going to get an argument
no,
from this guy.
No, like you talk about, DB can get beat, but if Jason gets to the quarterback, before the quarterback can get it off, it's okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But Syracuse was great. They ran this pro option attack they'd had for 15 years, where they actually, Daryl Johnston was that's why you probably may recall everybody calling me Baby Moose when Jimmy drafted me, and but Daryl was a great fullback, and we had a kind of lineage of really Zonka and Moose and all those guys, and so it made a lot of sense for me to go to school there. I wanted to be within a radius where my folks could come watch a football game, drive, and so it really came down to like Notre Dame. Lou Holtz was there at the time. I think guy Mark Edwards was a fullback that carried the ball. They played the Patriots, a couple other places, and went out. Those are really my two schools. I actually took a trip to Notre Dame, and when I got back, I had 44 was offered to me. So
that was the closer,
that was a closing deal,
man.
And it's a big deal if you ever spend any time on campus at Syracuse. It's they changed the zip code, the area code, statues all over the place. Every campaign is 44 this or 44 that. So it was a big deal up there. So it was a lot of fun.
What's that like as an 18-year-old kid that you're? I mean, you have to understand what that number means, and for them to send that to you, I just Juice tells the story of the handwritten letter that he got from Joe Paterno. I just 18 years old. I just can't imagine the weight of that.
It's interesting. I was this is probably before your time, but it was in my year. This was when they really started offering scholarships early. So my class, and so I actually accepted a scholarship my sophomore year in high school. So by the time I was going to college, I was ready.
Right.
I mean, it was two years in the waiting.
Yeah.
I did get to sit down though from the head coach and said, you have to do everything cleaner and better, and you have to be a team leader wearing this number, and it's not just the team, it's the community that expects it.
Right.
And I'll tell you one quick funny story with it. There was a media day, and Marvin Harrison, had a line of maybe 20 people, and being the brand new 44 on campus, I must have had 200 people in line waiting for an autograph.
So crazy.
And that's when it dawned on me that it was a pretty big deal at that school. So yeah, so 44 has always been a special number. In my life, I'm on the board of the school up there right now, and it's been a lot of fun for me and take a lot of pride in it. And they retired it so there was a golf tournament the day they retired the number 44, and Jim Brown happened to be at the golf tournament with me. And so I walked up to Jim. I said, Jim, I don't know if you heard this or not, but they retired my number at Syracuse.
How did Jim
What
take
did he
that?
say?
It took him a minute. And Jim's a pretty intimidating guy.
Yeah, still to this
And
day.
so I
Oh,
kind
my
of
God.
didn't know which way he was going to go with
You
it. but
knew him, right?
Yeah.
That's just what it was.
but
There's
was-
certain lines you don't cross, Konrad.
Yeah.
That's a good shot.
Oh,
But
that's a
it was-
great line. You were the last guy to wear it.
I thought it was entertaining.
I think it's a great line. So listen, you did, I think, fulfill your duties and the honor of that number. And 1999 rolls around, and you're draft eligible. There you are. I think there were 2 second-round draft picks. We didn't have a first-round pick that year.
I think we traded out of the first round.
Traded back.
And then we took 3 running backs.
Well, so that's what I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
3 backs, right? So J.J. Johnson, and then yourself, and Cecil Collins in the 5th round. What was that like? As you said, you were a guy who carried the rock. You weren't just, go in there and smash somebody up. And what was that like to be brought in with a full class of running backs?
It was interesting. I can't say that I expected, and OJ, the NFL is a different animal, right? Like you can run by people in college.
Yeah.
You don't run by a lot of people in the NFL.
Right.
When you're open in college, you're open by 5 yards. When you're open in the NFL, you're open by like a half a yard.
Right.
Or a
NFL
yard.
Open,
Exactly
is that
right.
what we keep hearing?
NFL Open.
And so it's the best of the best, and I don't know that I expected necessarily to play tailback, right? Maybe some one back, which I did, and I was hoping to be used a lot like, and I was told I was going to be used a lot like Daryl Johnson was used in like kind of Norv Turner and Jimmy's system, and which was a lot of blocking, but you did get the ball and be able to use your abilities. That to some degree didn't turn out quite like I probably wanted it to, but it was good. When Norv finally got here, it worked out really well. I love playing with Norv. Gotten 2 seasons with him, and I could see and you could feel how he got everybody in the game and got the fullback into the game with play action passes. I didn't have that for the rest of my career here, but that was an interesting year in a very crowded running back room.
Yeah, to say the least.
To say the least, yeah.
You talk about the running back room itself. Let's talk about the transition itself.
Yeah.
From the Northeast to South Florida. I mean, it's a whole different. You said it earlier before we got in, but I mean, South Florida is a different animal than anywhere anybody's come from.
If you would have told me that growing up in Boston, going to Syracuse, that I was going to be a Miami Dolphin, it was the last place I was thinking about going. Now there are a lot worse places to be drafted.
That's right.
And I'm still here today.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. I'm not leaving. I'm from Cleveland. I'm not going back.
I sense a theme.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's great. I will tell you a funny story though. It was you weren't there because it was a rookie minicamp, but we were doing warm-ups, and I thought I was in pretty good shape. I prided myself on living well and eating well and working out, and we were doing. Jimmy was running us through his calisthenics, or John Gamble was. I literally cramped up in calisthenics, and I'm like,
You're just getting started.
Yeah.
we didn't start playing yet, and I was thinking this is going to be take a little while probably to get in shape if ever, and it was a big adjustment, and you can't. It's hard to train for the humidity.
Right.
The heat's one thing. The humidity is a completely different animal. So
I in some ways, it's a question for both of you guys, but I can't fathom what it's like you spend your whole life, you guys are the cream of the crop at every level of football, but there's still that dream to get here, to get to the NFL. And you get here and you get in the locker room with, the folks that are there. But you didn't just achieve that. You end up starting your first NFL game. Mm-hmm. And you didn't just start, Juice. It's at Mile High Stadium. It's Monday Night Football, and you're in a huddle with Dan Marino.
I was a nervous wreck.
Okay, well that's what I want to know. Tell me about that.
It's funny. I typically, and I played in I played in the Fiesta Bowl, the Orange Bowl, played in a lot of big games in college, and I thought I got to the point where I could manage that. But when we walked out in that field, they got their Super Bowl rings, if you remember,
right?
And the old Mile High, they were stacked on top of you, and the place was deafening.
Oh, it's so loud.
And I was a nervous wreck. But I ended up scoring a go-ahead touchdown, which calmed my nerves quite a bit later on. But it was probably my most favorite memory of playing in the NFL was that first game.
That's awesome and fascinating. Do you still have that ball? That's your first touchdown.
Oh yeah, I have this picture. I was talking to Damon Hewer the other day, and I want to say it's. I figured one day down the road I would want the Dan Marino picture. I'm running off the field with Dan.
Yeah.
And I think that he signed it. Rob, congratulations on your first NFL touchdown, my 409th or something. Which was apparently a common thing that he did with a lot of guys, but just to rub it in a little bit. But that's up in my
that's so good.
my little sports room, which is kind of fun.
That's so good.
Rob, we talked a little bit about your draft class, with Cecil and JJ and yourself. But then you think about it, a few years later, another running back comes to town. Ricky Run comes to town.
Yeah.
As a fullback, how was that as a fullback for us to get Ricky and then you be in front of him a lot of times?
Well, the interesting thing was, if I remember this correctly, I think we had our draft class, which was primarily running backs, and then Gray Rugermer.
Yep.
Which is a story in and of itself, but I think I was the only remaining person out of my draft class the next year, or at least the year after that.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is odd.
Right.
And so
not ideal.
It wasn't ideal. We had Lamar Smith. I'm thinking we had Lamar Thomas and Lamar Smith. Came in and did great. I mean, when you look at their records and their teams, he was a tough runner and did a great job. But Ricky kind of changed the game a little bit when he came in, lost a bunch of weight, and kind of built that home run threat. And it actually helped my game quite a bit too. And that's when Norv was here, and he saw a lot of value in play action, and especially if he had athletic, and that's when Randy McMichael was there and I was there, and we had the chance to make a lot of plays, and by Ricky being such a threat running the football really opened up play action.
Swimming in general has been a popular topic here in the Fish Tank. We've had from all different points of view, the Zach, the Izzo,
I've
the
been
Hunter
involved in
Goodwin,
most
the
of
elbow.
In one way, shape, or form.
In one way, shape, or form.
The funny thing is growing up in North Shore, Massachusetts, I've boated my whole life, right? So I've been around them. I'm very comfortable around them. And I was retired later on, and it was interesting. Part of our business today is we have a private equity firm. We do some other things, but we have a wealth management family office firm. And I'll say his name because he's provided permission for me to talk about it. But a guy, Chip Kelly, who was the head coach of the Eagles at the time, was one of our clients, and he was flying into town and he wanted to go fishing. And so I was going to run my boat up the pond. The boat was in Boca. I was going to run up to West Palm Beach to go get it refueled and make sure nothing took place when we were fishing. And I run out to the Gulf Stream and I fish up the Palm Beach, and I take it in for service. Well, on my way out due east, I had on autopilot, put out a spread of ballyhoo, and hooked a good-sized fish. And I picked the rod up out of the swivel rod holder, or picked the rod up and put it in the swivel rod holder. At the time, there was a big cold front coming down. It ended up being 40 degrees that night. I was 10 miles offshore. It was like a Tuesday, so no one was in the water. And kind of a big wave hit at the same point. I would love to know what this fish was, but I just, the head over feet went out of the boat. I thought the boat was in neutral. One of the engines wasn't. It was because they had these digital gauges. It was in first gear, and I had an autopilot going due east and towards the Bahamas, and you can't catch up with the boat when it's going.
I can't imagine, no.
Man.
And what time is it?
It's noon,
Yeah.
about noon, a little before noon at this time, and I was way out past shipping, 10 miles offshore in the Gulf Stream. Anyways, after kind of getting my bearings, and I will say this: if it wasn't for my 7 weeks of Jimmy Johnson football camp and like his mind games and everything else, the one great thing about Jimmy, he taught you how to think and perform under pressure, and he did it every day. And I mean, you got to understand, I'm in the middle of the ocean. I can't see land. The sun is directly above me. I don't know which way is northwest. The only reason I knew east was that way is because I could see the outline of my boat.
Right, going east.
And I knew I had to go that way.
The opposite way.
Oh, my God. But how long does that even last, that you know that way is that way?
Not a long way. So I ended up, chasing the sun west. Now I'm sure it wasn't a straight line. I'm sure I was doing quite a bit of this. I thought I was either going to cramp and drown or I was going to get hypothermia. And so after about an hour in, I started thinking to myself, I can do this, even though, I don't know, there was still
So
some
that
doubt
first
about it.
hour, was there a little, I don't want to use the word panic, but was the concern, was it, like at some point you had to go into survival mode?
I talked to my maker for quite a bit that first hour, and it's the things that go through your mind, at that time about your family and hey, do I have is my trust set up correctly? Do I have life insurance?
like that,
Do I have
yeah.
sufficient life insurance? What is my wife gonna think? Because they're not gonna find me. Things like that. You have really interesting thoughts that go through your mind, and then at some point in time, it just hit me, and I just said, I'm hitting the shore. I'm not letting my kids grow up without a dad. My girls were young at the time, and so long story short, and 16 hours later, I think it was, I had no flotation device. I had a t-shirt and shorts on, and you're kind of forced with a decision. Well, the shirt will weigh you down, and your shorts are going to weigh you down. So I said, all right, I got 3 girls at the house. I'm gonna leave the drawers on just in case I wash up someplace, and just to save some embarrassment. And that was literally the thought
So
process.
you're thinking about all
Wow.
that as you're floating in the
Oh, yeah.
water. It's
Oh,
hour
yeah.
6 at this point.
Yeah, and then I found out later on from the Coast Guard, they said if you had a life preserver on, by the way, anybody watching, please wear a life preserver. But if I had a life preserver on, I wouldn't have made it. I would have died of hypothermia.
The fact that you were able to compose yourself and that you made this decision, that you had the fortitude that I'm going to make this and I'm going to get there, but does that ever waver at some point? Like, what was that journey like?
It was bad. It was bad. It wasn't, you're not swimming in the pool, you're swimming in salt water, so everything that can, chafe or whatever was there. Yep, sunburnt back, sunburnt everything. And there were 6-foot waves, so you're like making sure you're taking a breath everywhere. I mean, it was a process. And then when night came, you couldn't really see the waves, which was
Right.
worse. And yeah, there was one point, there were two times that kind of really tested my will. One was, this is early on, I got caught by a wave and I got taken under probably about 10 feet. And I have a memory of my grandfather, who's long passed, grabbing my shoulder, pulling me up, which obviously didn't happen, but I had that sensation. And I had this warm sensation throughout my whole body, and I just remember him saying, "You're a Manka, you're tough, you can do this." And it was kind of gave me a new kind of, and that's when I kind of said, I'm hitting the shore. Now, the second time was, my wife thought I went out of Hillsborough Inlet. Went out of Boca Inlet. I went out of Hillsborough Inlet because I want to get some more fishing in on my way up north, of course. So I saw 10 miles upshore all these helicopters circling around. I knew they were looking for me, and then they left. They quit, But one helicopter came up and literally had their lights on me, but you can't see any. You can't pick out a head in a dark ocean.
Are you
with
screaming?
raining.
Like, are you?
Yeah, I'm flailing as much as I can and everything else, but they didn't see me and they took off. And
Wow.
and that was tough because I was probably still good, 6-7 miles offshore at the time. and this is like 3 in the morning.
When you say that was tough, you're saying that's like when your spirit breaks.
That was when I knew I was on my own. I was not getting saved. It was either I was hitting the shore or I wasn't. I don't know that if I didn't play football, I would have made it. I don't think I would have made it because you're taught those things. What are football players taught? They're taught to work through adversity, right? You push your body further and harder than you think you can. You can do it because you've done it, right? And those two things came in extremely valuable from my standpoint. When the first time I heard the waves hit the shore, I was certain it was a school of sharks that were like hitting bait fish. Turned out it was just waves crashing on the sandbar.
Oh man!
And when I hit that sandbar, I was thrilled. However, I had to stand up in 40-degree air with mild hypothermia and try to get someplace.
Right.
That's when I got really scared because when I stood up, I couldn't walk. I had a rhabdomyolysis, which is where you work your muscles so hard they break down, and so I had to crawl into this tunnel, and I basically had to sit there for about 10 minutes and just gather myself and try to heat myself up.
Right.
Now in Palm Beach, they have all these islands underneath A1A, so I run to the closest island, and there's a locked gate. Someone had been deceased, and they had a security guard at the gate. And so I walked up to the security guard. Mind you, I'm in my underwear.
Right, soaking wet.
Okay, soaking wet. And
Looking
I'm like, what am I going to tell this guy right now? And so I walked up and I said, look, I'm in trouble. Please call the police. And which they did right away, which was great. And they brought me out a towel. And jumped in the ambulance, got me fluids, and got to the hotel. And miraculously, I made it. And what's crazy is my kids. My wife had a really hard time. She thought I was.
That's what I was going to ask you.
Was not going to make it, but she didn't call the Coast Guard until it was after dinner. I didn't make it home. It was unlike me to not check in. And she sent my kids to bed, and by the time they woke up, I had hit shore, which was good. So they never knew any different.
They didn't have to feel that.
Wow. All right, well, this isn't going to be a 16-hour deal right here, man. We're going to get what
close.
we do here on the fish tank. We got a 2-minute drill.
Okay.
All right.
So we talked about Salem. Who was more likely to practice witchcraft, Jimmy Johnson or Dave Wannstedt?
Practice witchcraft.
Sure.
I'd go with Jimmy.
Okay. Why? Juice is all in here.
That's tough to talk about maybe on TV, but I would say, would you agree with me with that?
Absolutely.
All right, we'll keep it moving.
That's good.
Jimmy just had the different. He kind of had a different spirit to him.
All right, so the number 44 will be put back in circulation at Syracuse.
I have deferred to Jim Brown. I would say that
Since that joke didn't go real well.
Jim has made no uncertain terms that he would view it as a punishment to unretire his number. And I have more recently, Floyd unfortunately was a great person passed recently, and I've somewhat become a spokesperson. The university wants it back. For commercial and just for the fan reasons, but I just out of due respect for Jim, I've kind of held that point.
I think that's the right move. Yeah, go with what Jim Brown says. All right, we're going to keep it moving. Let's go to greatest Syracuse Orangeman not named Larry Zonka to have worn a Miami Dolphins uniform.
Lindo Murray.
Okay, I like it.
Okay.
Meanest thing Dan Marino ever said to you in a huddle.
Catch the damn ball or get off the field, and it was.
That wasn't damn.
That's about as nice as I can put it.
Okay, got it. We got one more.
Last
Juice.
one. Most likely to replace Jason Momoa as Aquaman in the next film: Hunter Goodwin, Larry Izzo, or Rob Conrad?
I would say Hunter. I mean, Hunter's kind of a rock star.
Hunter's a rock star, but after that damn story, I'm going with Konrad.
Listen, mine was a survival swim. He's a swimmer.
All right. Well, that's the 2-minute drill.
Izzo's out.
Izzo's out
Izzo's got
completely.
no shot. Zach said he took floaties to the pool. So, well, hey man, it was great to be able to spend some time with you. I didn't know how it was going to go with your story of just kind of overcoming, like you said, just defeating the ocean. But I appreciate you sharing that. and just reliving all these moments. It's been a blast. So thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Yeah, it was great spending time with you guys, and enjoy the show. And I've had a blast listening to a lot of our old teammates share stories. So
It's the biggest compliment
No
we
doubt
get, isn't
about
it?
it. No doubt about it. Hey,
Excellent.
Thanks for diving in, Rob.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.